everybody from this moment on to recognize me as the scholar of boxing.
See, their morals, their code. It's a bad joke. You've dropped at the first sign of trouble. They're only as good as the world allows them to be. I'll show you. When the chips are down, these civilized people, they'll eat each other.
49 hours declaring it a riot.
Cruiser 5 to 50 be advised, County Police 1 advised they're trying to breach and get to the Capitol.
Publicists, when you talk to your publicists, you know the first thing they tell you? What? Stay away from religion, stay away from politics. Okay. You know why? No matter what the you say, somebody passionately disagrees with you. Absolutely. No matter what religion, you believe in Allah, then you're saying that's not the right way. You believe in every Christianity, that's not it, because they choose something different. Your political party, the Democrat, Republican, the disagreement completely. Yep. So I stay away from it. When I get pulled into politics, I go, yeah. And I have nothing to say. I'm just the same way we are. We don't no politics, none of this. I'll with that. I don't stay there because I'm still entertainment. If it's not music, then it's from a television, but it's still entertainment. So why would you turn someone off by saying that? Right. I want everybody to enjoy what I'm doing. Right. Not just a selective few amount of people. I focus on diversity because it's needed. Right.
The boxing scholar is a lover, not a fighter, but he's also a fighter, so don't get any ideas. If he pats you on the back, you'll put it in your resume. His enemy. Have him listed as an emergency contact. The scholar has an inside joke with complete strangers. If he punched you in the face, you'd have to fight the urge not to thank him. Sharks have a week dedicated to him. He's the only man alive to is parallel park. A train is count to infinity twice. In Genesis, when God said, "Let there be light," the scholars said, "Say pretty please." He is the genius of all genius and master of all masters.
And that's the trick to life. You have to be wise enough to know when you were living in your dream. And you have to be humble enough to accept when you were in someone else's.
Yo, the Boxing Scholar's on. What's good, everybody? Hold on. Let me get the theme music. I need my theme music. It's the Genius. Genius on. Goddamn, the Genius on Friday nights. That's why I think I'm going to start calling these segments Rocking with the Genius. What's good, everybody? Oh, so if you haven't been watching the other lives where I've been promoting the hell out of this live, right? Hold on. Give me a second. Give me 1 second. Yeah, so where I've been promoting this live pretty much, telling everybody to go watch this documentary. Now, look, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was hoodwinked, bamboozled. You know, I was led astray, all of that stuff, right? Because I didn't know what to expect. You know, the first documentary that I remember going like, well, I would say like viral. No matter what everybody's religion, recommending that you watch it, was probably like, what's good, Maria? Was probably like, what was that? It was, oh my God, Tell Them You Love Me. Have y'all seen Tell Them You Love Me Oh my God. Now that one was good. I think that one came out maybe like 2 years ago, something like that. That one was good. Oh my God, it was so good. It was good, Ben. It was really, really good. It was basically, well, I mean, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. Man, I ain't gonna spoil it. But that one was good, pretty much. It misled you. It took you in different directions. You thought one way, ended up believing another. It was really, really good, right? So that one was good. This one, I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect. Yeah, you were supposed to do homework for this live, Maria. You tripping, sister. You tripping? Yeah, you were supposed to do homework for this live, Maria, because this live was supposed to be about the documentary review. And Maria, where you been at? I've been promoting it like a mother, like, hey man, watch. I even pushed the live back to give everybody time to watch it. What's good, most hated? But yeah, so the documentary I watched, Tell Them You Love Me, was great. If you haven't seen Tell Them You Love Me on Netflix and you get some downtime, definitely check out that, because that one it's not going to be what you think it is. You know, you're going to think you got to figure it out, and then it's going to be, oh, what the hell? What is this? Then you think that guy, and then like I said, it's like a real life movie, but it's real life. It's real life. And so it's not like, Sinners was like, you were mad, but you was like, man, come on. When Ricky got shot, Ricky in the back, all that stuff was bad, but it was a movie. This is real life. So it was kind of like sad, ultimately. But it was, I ain't gonna lie, I give it an 8 out of 10. That one was goated. Now this one, The Perfect Neighbor. I'm gonna be honest with you. It wasn't that good. It wasn't that good. For me, at least. It reminded me of another documentary that went viral on Netflix, was The Way They See Us, or something like that. It was kind of aligns with that. I never seen The Way They See Us. My wife definitely watched it and was cussing at the TV or whatever the case may be. I never took the time out of my day to watch that movie or documentary, because I already knew what it was going to be about. Like, I don't watch stuff that's going to confirm how I already believe that people see Black Americans. It's stupid. What am I watching it for? To get angry about stuff I already know exists? It doesn't make any sense. So I never really got into it. I never really got into that documentary. I was like, nah. But like I said, my wife was really passionate. And then this one, I had no idea what to expect. So it starts off, the whole entire documentary is based on police cam footage, right? So it starts off with this older white lady, and she's cursing at these kids for being kids, but she's really, really going at them, And you're like, what the hell? I was like, you see, I'm thinking like true crimes, because I'll be watching shows like that, Snap, True Crime. I'm thinking she got bodies over there because she didn't want them in the lot. I'm like, yep, she got them bodies buried over there. That crazy old lady got them bodies buried in the backyard. This is just how my brain working. But no, it was nothing about no bodies. She didn't have no bodies buried in the lot. It was basically older racist white lady. That's essentially what it was. And I was like, what? Like, we have a term for them. We call them Karens, right? Like, Karens is a real term that we use to describe people who, call the laws or mess up people's lives or whatever the case may be. Like, there's already a term for them. So I didn't know why we needed to watch it in a documentary to know that it's true. That's stupid. So, like I said, it starts off with her, yelling at the kids, screaming at the kids. She calls the cops. The cops come, and things to note: when the cops get there, they, of course, they did the right thing. They split them up. Got the stories from each person. I did like that. I can't help but to notice, but there was a female cop, a sister, black woman. She went over to the black woman, and she wasn't accusing her anything. She was just really just shooting the shits with her. She was really just talking to her, having down to earth conversations with her. And I like that. That's why I think we need more black people in law enforcement. But, they were over there talking or whatever the case may be. And then the head guy, the person whose case it was, comes over, and he's like, yeah. So I talked to the lady, and he first. Oh, hold on. Let me start over. Let me go back. When the black lady approached her, she was like, I see you smiling, so you already know what this is about. She was like, yeah, basically. She was like, that lady is always complaining. She's saying she don't want her kids over there. And she was like, yeah. And, they just started talking or whatever the case may be. What's good, Angie? And they just started shooting small talk, you know what I mean? And then the head officer, like I said, comes over and he's like, hey, basically stay off that's their land. If, their property, if she was on your property and they called me, I would tell her the same thing. So just, stay off her property. And the woman just looked at her. She didn't say anything. I looked at the dude. She looked to say anything. She smiled and she went inside the house. Now, this is spoiler alert. If you have not seen the documentary, you might want to mute or go watch it real quick and come back or whatever the case may be. Because I'm fit to spoil it all. I'm just letting you know, spoiler alert. You know what I mean? This documentary, I probably gave like a 6. You know what I mean? Just because, the characters that were involved and how it ended, it was like predictable. It's like if you were black in America, how this story is going to end. It wasn't surprising. You know what I mean? They could make a Boys in the Hood too, and it would have more of a surprising ending than this, in my opinion. So yes, of course. So the lady's name's Susan. So and those people, those residents, if you look out there, you see, and this is in Florida too. I didn't know at first. And I looked out like, oh, of course, Florida of all places. So if you look at the neighborhood, you see the different shades of every color. You know what I mean? Like there's a white woman that's out there and you already know how the white woman talks. She got black kids. Like I'm just keeping it real. You know how the white woman talks. She got black kids. They still had a sense of community. And I like that. I like that they were outside playing because that kills the narrative that we have today about kids not wanting to go outside, kids not playing. You know what I mean? They were outside. They were outside having fun. That actually was one of the highlights of the documentary. It reminded me of my childhood when we was outside, you know what I mean? Jump roping and doing all kind of stuff. You know what I mean? Whatever the case may be. But we were outside. We were being social because, nowadays, phones have made adults who grew up with those good memories. They are detached from society. Like that's why people be making jokes like, man, you need to go outside, let some grass touch your feet, let some fresh air get in your lungs. They be making jokes like that with adults who had that. So, if the adults are addicted to the devices, God forbid the kids who don't know any other. So that was the refreshing thing about the documentary is that the kids were outside being kids. I love that part of the documentary, and that ironically, that's what ended up being the source of it because the lady clearly has some type of mental issue. Something was going on. She wasn't working with a full deck, clearly, right? The lady would always call the laws on the kids for being kids. That's what basically, because like I said, it's shot from police body cam footage. So it's every time the police officers came out. You know what I found interesting? That every time they went out there, that they always had something derogatory to say towards the lady when they left, but they still would treat the lady as if, and I get it, police officer is like a nursing job or a doctor where it's a service job and you're providing customer service to a patient, client, whatever title you want to put them at. But at some point when you keep coming out there for the same thing and there's no solution to just, why do they always treat her like they would always treat the other people like they were the problem instead of just going and chopping it up with them? Like, yeah, you guys got to stay off the property or, ain't really much we could do about it because eventually what happened is she was a renter too as well. It wasn't even her property. But the guy who stayed next door, the older man, he didn't care about the kids being over there. So he was like, no, they could play on my half of the lot. Right. And he was okay with that. So that they would send their kids over there to play over there because they were kids. They were doing what we all complained as adults about them not doing, which is going outside. So they would go outside and, they would play on the lot and she still would call the cops for them playing on the other lot. And so the documentary continues and they get like a couple instances that happen throughout the years where she's calling the cops on them, complaining. And then she says, oh, that the lady threw a sign at me and all this whole kind of stuff. And the neighbors like, she ain't throw no sign. The neighbors was on the side of him because they had been with them people for years, I'm imagining. Like they had a community there. She was the outsider. Picture that, right? Somebody moves into your neighborhood, right? And been staying there a year and they have a problem with you. And one of my friends named Jay did a reaction video on this, and she basically talked about that. And it was like, I agree with 100% with what she said. She basically said that people people who look down on poor, they associate the lower class with black and brown people, right? That they otherize them and associate them. They really feel bad about they have a hard time looking at themselves in the mirror when they have to go live next to those same people. Because it's like, okay, I look down on these people, I despise these people, but financially, I'm on par with them because I have to go. I'm forced to live into the neighborhoods. So I do agree with that sense that she moved there and she didn't like it. She didn't like anybody in the neighborhood, nobody. And one thing that she did throughout the whole documentary that just really rubbed me the wrong way is she knew how to flip it on. She was aware. She was aware. It's like she knew how to flip on that Karen stuff. You know, I remember somebody was sending me some videos about people who were saying that it's racist to call somebody a Karen, and how society has turned anti-racism, and white people experience more racism than everybody else. And I just like died laughing. Like, that's what you think racism is? Name calling, not getting a job. You know what I mean, or being unalived, or whatever the case may be. Name calling. That's what you have to deal with. Hey, you're going to be in my prayers at the top of the list, top of the priority list. I promise you that. But yeah, so that lady, moved into the neighborhood, did not like the people there, felt like she was forced to live with them, had multiple instances of calling the cops. And then there was something in the footage of the police officer, and I thought this was one of the most interesting highlights of the video. He knocks on her door and he tells her, "Hey, need you to come outside." And she's like, and you know what? She was really aggressive when they knocked on the door. I thought that they would pick up on that this might not be a lady working with a full deck, or that she might be the aggressor in the situation, because she would complain on the kids and say the kids were doing this. They were calling her names and blah, 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 yada, 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 right? And they would knock on her door. She's like, "How is it?" You know what I mean? Just crazy. It's like, it's the police that you called on the phone. But this particular instance, she didn't call the cops. The cops were called on her. So there was a situation where she got locked behind the gate, and she, what's up, Raji? She grabbed she got her truck and repeatedly just kept ramming the gate, like really, really hard, like, oh, you know what I mean? Like hard, and damaged the gate, got up out of there and went and took her ass to the house and went to sleep. Like nothing happened. Like what she did wasn't like extremely uncommon. Like she did it like it was normal. Like she didn't break the law. And then when a police officer came, she was being uncompliant. Like she wasn't complying with his orders. And then she was like, "Oh, you got to remember, I just been through a lot." And you turned it on. Turned on the Captain Karen. Like she turned it on and started put on a performative act for the police officer. And then, the police officer Mirandized her. This is why I scratched my head, because he asked her where she had been. She said, "Oh, I ain't been nowhere all day. I ain't went nowhere." And he was like, "Really?" And he was like, "Because I just heard, did you let anybody use this truck?" And she was like, "No." It's like, "Well, this truck was involved in damaging a gate, and the owner wants to press charges on you. So what I'm gonna do is," and he pulled out a card and he Mirandized her and didn't take her to jail. I'm like, wait a minute. You only Mirandize people when you're gonna do an interrogation or you're gonna make an arrest. He Mirandized her and didn't make an arrest. I just scratched my head on that. I'm like, interesting, Documentary kept going, and fast forward, I think it might have been one more call before this call. Like I said, it's spoiler alert. So if you have not seen the documentary, you might want to watch it. You probably want to get out of here, or you might just watch it afterwards and see if you can notice some of the things I'm telling you. I'll give you full disclosure that I'm about to spoil it, right? So I think it might have been a one more incident that happened, and like I said, every time that one of these incidents happened, the police officer would always be like, they would cut it off, but they'd be like, "Psycho." One of the times I think they called her a Psycho B, but they cut the B word off because they didn't want to make the police officers look bad. Like I said, this is a documentary from Body Cam, You know, I don't think I've ever seen a documentary fully from a body cam before. That's pretty interesting, right? You know, something that people just, you know, disregard, like body cam footage, and they made a documentary out of it. That's pretty genius too, as far as Netflix is concerned. So yeah, so this time that they called the police officer. Oh, they showed the ring footage, and it was the little boy, because the woman had sons, right? And this woman was beautiful, like I said, and you could tell. Jay made this point, so shout out to my homegirl Jay. But she said you could always tell how the mom is by how the kids are. They didn't cuss. And listen, I don't know about y'all or what it says about my mama, but well, let me not say that. My mom was the best. But I was a badass kid. I was just keep it real. I was cussing, you know, we was playing hide and go get it. Yeah, that's just me. I just could keep it real. That's just me. You know, I was fast kid. But those kids, whenever they was describing the event to the police officer, they were spelling out the cuss words. And she said this and she said that. But this lady was calling them the little kids niggas. You get what I'm saying? Like this lady was absolutely a monster and a terror to these kids the whole time, complaining that they were a terror to her. Like this is stuff that you can't make up. It was mind blowing. I couldn't believe it. I could not believe it. Like I couldn't believe it because like I said, it's not shocking to me that a racist white lady would be seen as a victim, you know, because they identify. And this is why I say we need more black cops in law enforcement, because they looked at her as like that's their grandma. They looked at her that could be their mom. So they were more delicate with her. Hey, mom, did you say nigga today? Might not want to do that, mom. You know what I mean? They identified more with her, and they were more relaxed a lot of situations in the video, and you could see it in real time. And yeah, that is a smart idea, Raji. And like I said, so the lady had kids. She was a terror to the kids and repeatedly call them. And then this situation, the little boy is on the ring footage and he's losing it. Like he's jumping up and down, he's screaming. He's like, call the cops, call the cops. And the white lady that stayed there that was friends with her, you know, was like, you know, commotion, like what's going on and stuff. So they go out there, they call the cops. And this is something that I noticed, right? And this is just from observation of the ambulance and stuff like that, and knowing a little something about procedures and shit like that, right? I was really surprised that the police officers were the first one there. So and this is why I'm guessing the police officers might have been there. You know, this is me. I don't know. This is just my perspective, right? Because she called the police officers before the event happened, right? And she called the police officers, and when the little boy was frantic, from that time, I think she actually ended up shooting the mom. So this is the story that was told on the side of the people, that everybody that was involved. So they said that the lady, the older white lady, Susan, she kept complaining about stuff and doing stuff to them and whatever the case may be, provoking them. That's what I heard, provoking, because they're kids. You know what I mean? Kids are going to think and be like kids, right? So in this instance, she ended up throwing a skate at them or something, throwing something at them, and she took the little boy's tablet inside of her house, right? Now, the little boy does what little boys are supposed to do, right? Somebody takes your kid tablet. You don't expect your kid to go retrieve the tablet. They're supposed to go call an adult, right? So he went and got his mom. And this is the saddest part about it, because through every single interaction throughout the documentary, you only see one interaction with the woman who passed, the woman who was shot. You only see one interaction, and it's at the very beginning. Other than that, it appeared to me that she went to work and minded her business and just accepted the fact that she had a crazy neighbor that was bullying and harassing her kids. Not once did she ever call the police on the lady, and the lady was the one harassing her kids, right? And she ended up shooting the lady. So she takes the tablet or whatever the case may be. She takes it inside of her house, you know, and the mom goes to retrieve it like any other parent would, right? And when she goes to retrieve it, the lady shoots her. right? So that's why the little boy was frantic on the doorbell and jumping up and down and telling them, call the police, and stuff like that. Then when the police came, they tried to render her aid. And this was the saddest part about it. When I tell you, when I looked over, my wife had snot bubbles. You know what I mean? She had snot bubbles and everything. Like, it was sad to me, but I ain't gonna lie to you. I ain't gonna say I'm desensitized, but I don't know. I don't even know what to feel at this point. It's like we're living it. We're living it. Like, this is a reality. And when we tell people about it, they, it ain't real. It's it happened so long ago. People get over it, grow up, and then it's like you kind of do become desensitized to it or numb to it. Like, this was extremely sad, but I couldn't even muster up tears. That's how numb to it that I became. But so she ends up shooting her, and then the police respond. When they respond, they ended up on the scene. I'm gonna be like, I gotta be frank with you. The woman was dead. By the time the police got there, it took a super duper long time. By the time that she eventually got there, it was obvious to me that the woman was dead, and everybody still had hope. Because my wife's first responder, and I was telling her, like, how do they not know that she's not breathing? It's been too long without aid or CPR or any of that stuff. Like, it's like she's unresponsive, and they still had hope. And then the cops had to tell the little boys that their mom was. It was a lot. It was a lot. That was a really, really intense moment of the documentary. What's good, Jed? Jed said, dude, I just watched that documentary a few hours ago. It made me and my wife cry because how my nephew died. That's crazy, Jed. That's crazy, man. That's crazy work. Yeah, that was a really intense part of the documentary where that, because it's like, and then I didn't like the way like I said, okay, so the police respond, the police respond to the call, then the ambulance gets there shortly after the police. The ambulance gets there shortly after the police. They render an aid to her. They get her in the hospital. They get in the ambulance and they take her to the hospital. And then I guess on the way there, she probably was pronounced dead because the police officer ends up telling the dad why he's there. And then, the little kids just lose it. I felt so bad for them. The little kids just lose it because I know that they partly, they said it in the documentary, they feel to blame for this. They feel like it's their fault because he went to go get his mom, and had he not got his mom, then she would have never passed away. And then not only that, they didn't know how to render aid. Nobody knew how to render aid to her while she was laying on the ground. So they got to live with regret for the rest of their life, which is more sad, And so they take the woman into custody, right? Take the woman into custody. And then when they take the woman into custody, of course, she's like, they're questioning her, and they're like, so what happened? And she's like, oh yeah, I fear for my life. And like, sure. Through the door, you fear for your life. And she had already called 911. She had already called 911, and they told her, they gave 911 gives you instructions on what to do if you tell them the situation that you're in. And she shot through the door, and it's like, how do you know what is on the other side of the door? What if it had been one of the kids that you just threw skates at? How do you know for sure that it's the mama? What if the mama left and it was the kid? But she shot through the door, and which is absolutely insane. I don't know how you could use castle doctrine if you're shooting through the door. It's crazy. So if I get into it with somebody in the street, I can literally just run inside my house, look through the peephole, and shoot, and tell them, well, I fear for my life. Yeah. But yeah, so that's the thing that she went with. I will say she was smart by just repeatedly saying, I fear for my life. I fear for my life. I fear for my life. Because that was smart. In the interrogation room. And then, the detectives was asking her stuff. But I felt, I'm going to be honest with you, I thought they were going to try to get a confession. I thought they were going to hammer her. I thought they were going to do a lot of stuff. But oddly enough, they didn't do it. And then I noticed something else that they did I thought was pretty crazy, right? They cuffed her from the front. Now, I don't know how many law enforcement people. Well, I do have a lot. I have a large amount of subscribers that are security and law enforcement, but I don't know how many of them looked at that and said, tactics wise, this is a piss poor job by the Florida police to cuff somebody in front. So first things first, they teach you a rule in policing that all murders are treated as homicides until foul play is disproven. So that was supposed to be treated as a homicide. They didn't even go in the house and look for the tablet after getting all the stories from everybody. You know, they went in there and got the guns that she shot, because she had two guns. They went and found the one that she shot and the other one, but they did not look for the tablet. Like that would have been if his tablet is inside her house. Well, then they're obviously telling the truth. The all the neighbors that had the stories that all connected were telling the truth, but they did not go get the tablet. I was just like I said, I was just like face palming, like, what? You didn't verify the story. They just took her word for it. And that's it. And that's what they did the entire time. They took her word for it. They took her word for it with the situation that happened. They tried to trip her up a couple times. You know, they didn't even do good cop, bad cop. It was both good cop, good cop. You know, even when she tripped up, they were like, wait a minute, but you said this. Well, wait a minute, you said that. Like, they were soft on it. It was no like, it's an interrogation room. You're supposed to interrogate. They were just letting her she was skating on ice in that interrogation room. And then even the detective told her at one part, like, okay, I'm going to give you this tablet. And this is what I'm thinking watching. So I'm going to give you this tablet. You know, the kids, she still has kids, you know. And, first off, in the interrogation room, they told her that the person that this is now a murder case. And she was like, oh my gosh. Well, not one tear fell from her eyes. She couldn't even muster up the fakeness to squeeze out a tear. You know what I mean? She could have put onions on her eyelids and couldn't muster up a tear. Like, she did not give a damn. That was her intention, right? And so they tell her, you know, well, that she's gone now and she has kids, you know, and the news media talking to them, and I want a statement officially from you to them. I thought that they were trying to trip her up to get her to say I didn't, you know, admit to killing or something. I don't know. I didn't understand the strategy, but I was like, okay, maybe they're trying to catch her, you know. And she wrote, I didn't mean to kill your mom, but I was in fear for my life. Like, that's what you have to say to the kids. No remorse whatsoever. So anyway, they leave, right? They leave the interrogation room, and this lady is just she's let off. Nothing. Like, there's nothing done, right? Also, almost forgot this. This is a very important detail, right? So when they went inside her house and they found the guns, you know what else they looked at? Her engine search history. You know what it had in there? How to commit a crime and get away with it. It was a castle doctrine and stuff like that, which shows that it was premeditated. It was premeditated, that she that wasn't by accident. That was by design. She mustered that up, you know, cooked it up and served it, you know, served out murder, and she should be in jail. But the search history, I was like, the detectives knew about the search history. They even questioned about her, about it in the interrogation room, and they just let it go. Let her go. But I know that sometimes whenever they're investigating a murder or a crime, that if they don't have enough, they can't just lock anybody up. They need a warrant. It has to be signed by the judge, et cetera, et cetera. But I felt like, you know, like, until that was ruled out from being homicide, that they were well within their rights to lock her up until they finished their investigation. But they didn't. They just let her go. And I was like, interesting, you know, very interesting. The most interesting part about it is, she was like, when they asked her about it, she was like, oh yeah, you know, I was just looking up some things. I was looking up like stand your ground laws and stuff like that. You know, that dude at the store with that dude at the store that defended himself, she was talking about fucking George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman. Oh my God. She was talking about George Zimmerman and Trayvon Martin. And then, and this is just how my brain work, and my wife don't help feeding me conspiracies. I think that woman was so racist, right? I think she was so racist. Because they even asked her about calling the kids nigger. Like, why did you call those kids nigger? Oh, well, I was taught, it meant a person that wasn't uh, uh, betraying themselves in a good light, or they were ignorant, or they were this, or they were that. It's like, if you don't stop, you knew what you it's always crazy. Racist people always find the right words for the right moment. And then after that moment's passed, they got to go back and clean it up and justify why they said it. And instead of just saying, oh, no, I meant it in a bad way. I meant it to hurt. I meant it to cut deep. I meant it in a historical context that everybody is aware of. It's always some cleanup BS. So, yeah, so she goes, I didn't even, still using that Karen stuff. I didn't even know. When I was just born last year, I don't even know what that word meant. I never read a history book. She's just going into her spill. But even with all that, I feel like that was enough for the detectives to be like, all right, we're gonna hold you in the custody, until we can figure this out, because it's not a good look. You calling these kids racial slurs, and then the story with the tablet. How do the neighbors have all the stories the same about this tablet? Where's this tablet? Do you have a tablet? Did you take his tablet? They never asked any of those questions. They just took her word. And then the fact that it was George Zimmerman that she referenced in the case should just bring a lot of suspicion, because we already know the whole craziness with that. 911 told George Zimmerman to not approach Trayvon Martin. They told him he disregarded all the 911 orders. Went up to Trayvon Martin, started getting beat up by Trayvon Martin, and then somehow he becomes the victim to shoot Trayvon Martin and basically got away with murder. So we know that, right? And she was looking up stand your ground cases because she wanted to get away with murder too. And like I said, this is my conspiracy brain and my wife too, not helping it, because she came up with this, and I was like, it's a good ass point. My wife was doing research on this lady, and she said that neighborhood had already been, the people in that neighborhood had already been there a while. And she was like, why did she move there? And I was like, where did she move from? Guess where she moved from? New York. New York is really, really strict on gun laws. We already know this. So why would a person go from New York, strict on gun laws, to Florida, laxed on gun laws and Castro doctrine? And then she's researching George Zimmerman, Trayvon Martin, stand your ground. This woman was racist, and she wanted to kill a black person. And the way you could do that and get away with it is latch on to the careness, and get into a place where that's really laxed on gun laws. And she had a perfect climate for all of the above. And that's why she went there and killed that woman, in my personal opinion. So, yeah, so let me fast forward. So, what ends up happening is the cops end up escorting her back to her house to get her belongings, because they said it wouldn't be safe and that she needed to stay in the hotel, which I imagine the hotel was paid for by the city, just like some protective custody stuff. I imagine I might not be right, but I'd imagine, that it was paid for by the city. But who knows? They could have charged her for the hotel, or just, provided her as an escort to the hotel. But they protected her. And the neighbors were, when I tell you those neighbors, they were pissed. I think they might have even ramshacked her house and, messed it up, like tore that house up. I think, I'm not sure. I only say that because one of the neighbors confronted her whenever they got back to the neighborhood, because the police officer was there, and the lady was getting the stuff out the house, and then the police officer goes and approaches the neighbors, which I thought was stupid. I thought it was stupid. Just stay by the person, secure them, get them to their vehicle, and get out. You don't have to say anything to the already tormented neighbors. They were already mentally and physically shook up from what had went down. This is somebody that they knew before they knew this the Susan character that moved there. They were already there. Their kids played together. They knew it. You know what I mean? They were a community. And then not only does the person that doesn't belong there move in and make trouble, but they actually kill a person of the community. Of course, everybody there is going to be mad. He should not have approached the woman, in my personal opinion. But he approaches her, and she's over there. She's furious. He's talking cash money stuff. You know what I mean? That's facts. Jay said perfect neighbor my ass. That's hilarious. Yeah, but yeah. So when the cop approaches her, he's like, he's trying to use the de-escalation tactics, but it's like, bro, that only works on rational minded people and people that ain't just experienced fresh trauma. You wouldn't try that approach on somebody that just had a death in the family. Hey, make my job easier, pal. Like, that's not gonna work. They're not trying to hear that. And that was the wrong thing to say. As soon as he said that, she might have got more crunk whenever he said that. Hey, ma'am, can you make my job easier? Make my life easier. Make your life easier. Like she went off. And this is why. And this is why I say. That's why I say. Normal people would look at impoverished neighborhoods and say, "Oh, crime, crime, crime." The only crime that they had committed was living in the neighborhood that the Karen moved into. That was the only crime. The cause of the cops was getting out there was only solely for her, and even whenever they were pissed off and crying, they didn't do anything like unlawful to the police officer, to anybody. Like, they had perfect opportunity when that lady was there. Even the police officer was there. You know what I mean? If they was as reckless as people was making it seem, why they didn't crash out? They didn't do none of the above. And it confirmed what I know about those type of places. Most of the crimes ain't committed by the locals, it's the outsiders, but they blame it on it because the locals are easy to abuse and get away with it. And people know that it's easier to steal from somebody who might not call the cops on you. People are aware of this. Criminals are smart and calculated. So they will target the oppressed and weak because they don't have a voice. It's not rocket science, But yeah, so the police officers make my job easier, whatever the case may be. And the woman was like, "Your life better? I mean, your life easier? Are you fucking serious?" Like, she was going off. And like I said, that was stupid for him to approach her. So anyway, woman gets her belongings, and then she leaves, and then anytime she goes back to the house, she has escorts, right? Well, what happened is this story made headlines before it even got on Netflix, and it caused public outreach. And when it became like a high profile case and more people started getting involved in it, well, then that's whenever the justice started to apply, because then police officers started, it's a high profile case. They don't want to look bad. No agency wants to look like they're not doing their job. So, I think I don't think the police chief on there was like, if somebody threw a skate at my kid, I don't want to do something too, and that was obviously a PR. That was obviously a PR statement to let people know that we're going to do our due diligence to make sure justice is served in this case. So, so eventually they take the woman into custody, and try her for murder. And when I tell you, in that documentary, when she came into court and she was skinny, you know what I mean? That was wild. Like, I was like, what the Bible say, ain't no sleep for the wicked or some shit like that. Ain't no rest for the weary. I don't know. I ain't no Bible connoisseur or anything. I'm the scholar of boxing, not the Bible. But yeah, something like that. But I tell you, I don't know if it was the mental illness she had or whatever the case may be. She did not look good at all. Head all big, skin all saggy, and I didn't even recognize. I'm like, this the same person? But she came into court, and she was guilty of manslaughter, and she got 25 years. And I was like I say, I keep it real. I was like, damn, they give 25 years for manslaughter in Florida. But why didn't she get tried for murder? That was what I was scratching my head with. It was like, she clearly premeditated that. Like, it was clear that her intentions was to kill somebody, you know? So why did she get manslaughter? Manslaughter is where you know what manslaughter is, but if you don't know, if you drink and drive, that's considered manslaughter because you knew that drinking and driving was irresponsible, you know, and your negligence led to death. Hers was premeditated with the intent to harm. So why wasn't she charged with murder? Just it blows it blows my mind. Like, I can't wrap my mind around it. But at least they did something. But it just goes to show you, if this had never been a high profile case, the family would have never got justice. They would have never got justice. And this is why Black people have a negative view on the court systems. This is why right here, because they live them. And you know what's really interesting about Florida, this happening in Florida of all places? Check this out. Give me a second. This is why this is super interesting. First off, every time I hear about a crazy person, I always assume they're from Texas or Florida. That's where all the crazy people come from. All the stuff that y'all see on TV, you be like, what the hell? Florida, Texas, right? Florida has a lot of idiots, and so does Texas, right? But look. Give me 1 second. Let me look this up real quick. Hold on. Okay, here we go. I think this is it. Okay, hold on. Give me 1 second. Let me share my screen. Okay, hold on. Give me a second. Take this off the screen. Boom.
In 2023, of course, there was no silver lining in slavery, but that's what South Carolina Republican Senator Tim Scott said when asked by a reporter about Florida's new Black history curriculum at a campaign stop in Iowa.
There's no silver lining in freedom, in slavery. What slavery was really about separating families, about mutilating humans, and even raping their wives. It was just devastating. So I would hope that every person in our country, and certainly running for president, would appreciate that. And listen, people have bad days. Sometimes they regret what they say, and we should ask them again to clarify their positions.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad day. And actually, Ron DeSantis doesn't regret saying it. Ron DeSantis believes it, or at least believes that Florida public school kids should be subjected to it because his handpicked school board approved this guidance for teaching African-American history. Quote, how slaves developed skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit, end quote. Ron DeSantis' school board has also approved the use of videos made by Prager University, which is not actually a university at all. It's a conservative content mill in Florida public schools. The Southern Poverty Law Center has called Prager's videos, quote, dog whistles to the extreme right.
Let me find a better video than that. I want you to see what actually Ron DeSantis is doing to the public schools in Florida. And I don't know how people think stuff like this can happen and it not have an effect. And then you know what's really, hold on, give me a second. Give me 1 sec. Boom. Okay, there we go.
Good morning, Wendy. You know, this debate may have started in Florida, but it has now landed squarely in the middle of the presidential race.
I didn't do it, and I wasn't involved in it.
Florida's Republican Governor Ron DeSantis tried to distance himself from the curriculum controversy, but it didn't work.
I didn't do it and I'm not involved in it are not the words of leadership.
Florida's new history teaching guidelines, approved last week, stem from a 2022 law Governor DeSantis called the Stop Woke Act.
Governor DeSantis started this fire with the bill that he signed.
The new standards say Florida students should be taught about the harsh conditions slaves endured, but also about how slaves developed skills, which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit.
They're probably going to show some of the folks that eventually parlayed, being a blacksmith into doing things later in life.
That comment drew a swift rebuke from fellow Republican presidential candidate Will Hurd, who tweeted, "Slavery wasn't a jobs program that taught beneficial skills. It was literally dehumanizing." NAACP President Derek Johnson.
We all must stand together as a...
Now, Ron DeSantis is an idiot. You know what I mean? For those who know, right? And he wanted to teach the silver lining in African American history, right? And his justification of that was, I don't want woke culture to make white people feel bad about slavery. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be woke on the racist side and affect the way that they teach it. You know, in other words, Martin Luther King said, hey, man, I do have a dream. But what about what those racist white people dream about as well? How are they going to be? We got to hear both sides. We got to hear both sides of this. It's not a right or wrong and everything. There's a silver lining and some gray area somewhere. Like, you can make this up. But, and then you look at this ain't something that just happened in Florida. All over the place, they're trying to get rid of African-American studies and studies on different figures during that time. And you're like, listen, right now, what we could do is we could throw every history book away, burn. What's really funny is the reason why we know a lot of the stuff that we know is because it was such a lucrative business, that they documented it like the way you document livestock and stuff like that. And these were human beings. So, and we still wear the same last name as the people that owned us. But so it's every they didn't know that later on that they would be free and the documentation could be used as bad. You know what I mean? So a lot of this stuff is documented, slave ships and everything. You know what I mean? So, but you could take all that stuff, right, and burn it, throw it away, right? And stories like this will still show that it's alive and well. If you look at all the characters that's involved, right? The Susan lady, you look at the black mom. You know what I mean? The black mom who wasn't a lot of the clips that they showed. Every time she called, it was on the kids. The police officers go talk to the kids. Or one time she was talking to a dude. But only one time did any of those interactions show that it was the woman who was unalive. You know what I mean? That woman was working and not worried about what this woman who stayed at home all day did. She just, and then the person from the other older person from the lot gave them permission to go over there and play. So, I mean, and like I said, she working. She ain't got time to worry about no stupid, kid stuff. This is kid stuff. Like, what is she to do? She can't fight you. You never gonna fight her. Like, what could she do? You basically moved into this neighborhood and terrorized this woman. There's nothing she could do. They worse than the gangsters. They worse than the gangsters that go to the neighborhood and terrorize. If you try to snitch or talk to the police, they go unalive you. Like, they are worse than them because she's a prisoner of her own home. Her kids are prisoners. They can't go out and play in the neighborhood they've been playing, grew up in, and played in for years because of this white Karen named Susan that moved to our neighborhood. But you could take all of the history books and burn them, and you still will get racism won't go anywhere. It's ingrained. The people nowadays don't think much more than the people back then. Not a lot has changed. People's channel was getting shut down for saying a certain name, and if you know. But we don't talk about Bruno. What's good? Give me Mo. We don't talk about Bruno. We don't talk about Bruno. No, we don't talk about that guy. That guy gets whole channels shut down, right? But what I hear consistently from Americans is Second Amendment rights, even whenever there's a mass unaliving of children or whatever the case may be, right? You hear the Constitution soldiers come out, right? And they come out with fervor and glare and patriotism in their eyes, right? But the Constitution was drafted after the commandments, and it was amended a bunch of times because modern times and things change, and these ain't the days of shekels and horses and knights and stuff, right? So it was amended a bunch of times, but they have it listed in order from the most important. Number one is freedom of speech, and they complain all day. Like Ron DeSantis has the nerve to complain about the woke culture. The woke culture coming in, indoctrinating kids. So I'm going to indoctrinate the kids with my version of history before you can. And it's the same thing with freedom of speech. They don't care about freedom of speech. Not for real, they don't. They only want the freedom of speech that makes them feel good about their existence or their life. Anything that conflicts with that. If you turn the Little Mermaid black, God forbid, oh my God, the Little Mermaid. Oh, Santa Claus, you got a black Santa Claus. Oh my God, Jesus Christ. Why do you have black Jesus Christ for it? They spend a lot of time angry about nothing. And that's what this Susan lady was. She moved into that neighborhood and she was angry about their mere existence, and it ended to a black woman dying. And sadly enough, like I said, this is just one that didn't get away. One day, it's no different than what you call it, not Zimmerman. What's the dude's name? George Floyd. George Floyd. That incident would. I mean, if it had not made headlines, you think something would have happened? Like cases that don't. Not every case is gonna go public enough to get enough people to make the people who should care. And everybody has implicit biases, naturally. And like I said, you can get rid of the history, but you can't get rid of the biases. When people see people of a certain color, they're going to be tribalism is going to exist, and they're going to be aware of the history, whether they study it or not. You have kids right now online, and it's so funny because I have this conversation all the time with one of my friends, and he always talk about the newer generation and how they're so different. They're so different than our generation because they're so far removed from racism, and I just laugh in his face like, what? Like, you serious? Like, come on, man. Like, I want you to think about it. And I would tell him this. I want you to think about this for a second. You ever seen somebody that said, man, my dog is racist? And then every time a black person go over there, the dog bark. And you be like, well, if a dog doesn't have the ability to read history books and is aware and can be taught racism, then why can't a complex brain like the human mind be taught the same thing? Especially when we're all, programmed and subjugated to propaganda. Like I said, the history books ain't gonna change anything. You can get rid of all the history; it ain't gonna change anything. Like the climate is still gonna be what it is. People like Susan, aka Karen's. It's so funny because in the documentary, the little kids was calling her Karen. They was like, that Karen always got a problem with us. And like I said, it was really refreshing early in the documentary, not knowing the ending, seeing the little kids be kids. But it was devastating to me to see that the little boy is going to grow up, with great regret of not knowing how to perform CPR, calling his mom to go get his tablet. He's going to have to live with that for the rest of his life. 25 years wasn't enough for cold-blooded, premeditated murder, in my personal opinion. And like I said, this is just the reality for some people. Some people look at this and be like, man, this is sad, man. I can't believe this is happening every day, all the time. Every day, all the time, every second of some people's life. Some people's greatest sin to the world is being born with blacker skin, darker skin. There was nothing that those kids could have did. I mean, no kid deserves to be called nigga. We live in a country where uh, a white lady called a black kid a nigger. Unrelated to this, but it connects. It's unrelated, but it connects. But a white lady called a black kid nigger, and the next day said she was the victim of people doxing her. Which I'm like, so don't you think people? It was. Can you picture that lady being a nurse in a service job, and she's calling she sees a little kid as nigger, and then when confronted about it, she doubled down on it. Remember, she stuck her tongue out. She said it again. She was so boldly enough to say it again on camera, nigga, 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 and that's what he was acting like, and stuck her tongue out at the dude. Then complained about people doxing her with no proof. No proof. Just know how to turn on the Karen stuff. No proof. Oh, they're doxing me. Oh, they're doing this to my family. I'm such a victim. Was able to raise $1 million. You hear me? $1 million just by playing the victim. Even though people look at the facts of the situation and can see this lady is no victim, right? No victim whatsoever. She was still able to play a victim and get $1 million. Because America has showed the others, right? The non-black and brown people. They showed them, right? I mean, this goes all the way back. You remember I did the story about the twins that accused a man of sexually assaulting them, and then after he spent all that time in jail, they still doubled down on their story that he did something to him. Whenever they did further investigation, I want to say the cousin admitted that he had an inappropriate relationship with his cousins, and that, you know, even if that dude went to jail, like, he deserved it for being black. Like, you can't make this type of stuff up. Like, these people exist. Like, I've never, and you know what's crazy? I never see the opposite. As much as these Karens complain that they're going through stuff, I never see the opposite. I've never seen a trail of black woman tears where a black woman has had a town burnt, a kid brutally beaten, lynched. You never see it on the opposite side. And they swear to God, them Susans and them Karens swear to God that life is just oh so hard for them, and that they are experiencing the most trauma that a human being could go through. Like, I pay attention to stuff like that. Like I said, during the interrogation, how they treated her. How it was even one part of the interrogation where she was like, they were like, okay, we're going to take you to jail. And she was like, no. I was like, no. What? No. She was like, no, I'm not going. And they was like trying to convince her, like, oh, ma'am, it's in your best interest if you go, because it looks like you're guilty if you don't. Blah, 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 blah. Basically treating this woman like she was a 5-year-old that was born yesterday, or, you know, whatever the case may be. Well, born yesterday or a 5-year-old, because you can't be both. But they started treating her like an infant. And like I said, them tears, man, like, just like nothing's new. If you go look at Rosewood, you know, everybody talk about Black Wall Street, Rosewood, right? Those towns were burnt to the ground off of white women lies. These are absolute facts. You go look at Jonathan Majors. Jonathan Majors started a movie like called Creed, where he looked like a boxer. You know what I mean? Jonathan Majors, no Diddy. Jonathan Majors cut up. Jonathan Majors is a big dude, right? Jonathan Majors was getting chased out of his car, not by a person that was armed, not by another big person that was beating him, by a white woman armed with her Karenness and white privilege. That stuff is a real. I don't know why everybody tiptoes around that like white tears from a white woman is not valued in America. That resource has been dangerous for Black people for centuries. As a matter of fact, you know, I was talking about this. What's good, Kazi? I was talking about this with one of my friends, and I said that I think Black people have a deep fear of dogs, right? There are some dog lovers out there, but they love their dog. I'm talking about somebody else's dog or a stray dog, right? And I think that that comes from them sicking hoses on us and dogs on us and stuff like that during civil rights. And we passed it down to be afraid of dogs. Same thing with white women. Same thing with white women, white men too. Like my teacher was telling me that during his time, he said people romanticize the '60s, but he was like he grew up in the '60s, and he was like that was not a good time for black people. He was like black people had to like basically walk with their head down. He was like even if they were successful, he said because it would create jealousy amongst white people. And this is a white man, by the way. He said it would create jealousy amongst with white people. He said, and they would just find a reason. He said that like if they were wealthy, they would have to make their house look like basically couldn't do renovations on their house. They couldn't make their house. They had to like make the paint look all chipped and stuff like that. They had to do a bunch of stuff to appease the ego of white people, or it could end with their house getting burned down, the family getting, or whatever the case may be. Said it wasn't a great time because I was one of those people. And I actually told him this. I said that I thought that would be a great time for black people. And he was like, like what? Like what is and then he basically told me that. And he was like, nah, it wasn't a good time. So like especially in southern states. He was like, that was sundown towns and stuff is for real. They still got sundown towns now. Shout out to House of Queens. House of Queens was talking about a place in Louisiana, a McDonald's that you can't hang around past 6 o'clock because they still have KKK meetings. And you're just like, yeah, stuff is still real. Matter of fact, let me go to the twin story. Let me, because seeing is believing sometimes. So let's go to some stories. Let's go. I can't remember the story, so let me see. I got to go back. Hold on. Oh man, hold on. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
loud and clear brand, just like Jarvis.
Listen, my AI over there talking to me. And then I said my goddamn government. Man, you trying to dox me, Jarvis? Come on, now. Hold up. Okay. So I had to go back and look at that. I cannot remember that guy's name to save my life. And I did a whole episode on this guy, which is the most ironic part. Said the expectation for Black women to be strong all the time. Black women don't get the same sympathy or empathy as other victims. I'm just keeping it real. That's a fact. That's a fact. That is an absolute fact. I mean, they literally injected Black people with syphilis because they thought they were strong enough to take it and wanted to see how they reacted to it. So that's right there to show you everything you need to know. But here we go. Hold on, give me a second. I have a clip. This is not even a guy. I'm gonna just show some cases. I'm gonna find that case though. By the way, I'm gonna find that case. Give me a second.
Tonight, tears of relief, nearly 40 years in the making.
I'm still crying with joy and relief right now today. I'm really overwhelmed. Words can't describe it.
Anthony Broadwater exonerated by a New York State Supreme Court judge this week at 61 years old, after spending most of his life paying for a crime he didn't commit.
With joy and relief, I went up to the gravesite to see my dad to tell him. I wish to God he was here.
Broadwater was 20 when he was charged with the rape of Alice Sebold, who went on to write bestseller The Lovely Bones. The alleged crime happened in 1981 at a park in Syracuse, New York. Sebold described the attack in detail.
Yo, this is crazy work, man. She wrote The Lovely Bones. That would go on to be a movie, not just a bestseller. It was a movie, and it was about sexual assault. That is absolutely crazy. Wait till I find you the one that I'm really, really familiar with. The one I'm really familiar with, I was really angered by this case because he was talking about forgiveness and all this old soft stuff. I ain't gonna lie, it made me mad watching it. But this one's interesting too as well. Give me a sec. I'm gonna find it. I'm trying to use AI because I thought I stored it on there. Give me a sec. We're gonna go through this.
Almost 20 years later in Lucky, a book that launched her career as an author. Her next hit, The Lovely Bones, was later adapted into an award-winning film. But all this was after Broadwater was convicted for first-degree rape and 5 related charges. He spent 16 years in prison. Through the years, he maintained his innocence. After serving his sentence, he quickly realized his life would never be the same.
The moment I stepped out, it was like impossible to get a job. These 10 fingers I can count on my hand of the people that accept me in their household. I can't get past 10.
He never stopped trying through appeals, motions, and even 2 polygraph tests to prove his innocence. But nothing worked. Until a film producer working on a screen adaptation of Sebold's book Lucky hired a private investigator to look into the evidence presented against Broadwater in court. They became convinced Broadwater was telling the truth.
Together, as we looked through the trial transcript, we realized, wow, this was a bogus conviction.
Earlier this month, Broadwater's new lawyers filed a motion to vacate his conviction based on now discredited scientific evidence and Sebold's identification of Broadwater as the perpetrator.
No one questions that Ms. Sebold was sexually assaulted. She absolutely was. But she saw Mr. Broadwater on the street about 5 months later, had a feeling this was the person who had raped her, and reported it to police.
She is asked to look at the individuals at some point in the lineup, and she picks out number 5. Anthony Broadwater was number 4.
Attorneys say they learned the next part of the story from Sebold's book, which they presented to the court as new evidence.
After that, the prosecutor walks in the room and begins to tell her, well, you picked the wrong guy, but essentially, don't worry, your hunch is correct. It actually is number 4.
Despite not picking him out of the lineup, At the trial, Siebold claimed Broadwater was the perpetrator. In a statement on Broadwater, the Onondaga County District Attorney who supported the exoneration said in part, "It is never too late to do the right thing." A spokesperson for Scribner, the publisher of Lucky, telling NBC News neither Alice Siebold nor Scribner has any comment. Scribner has no plans to update the text of Lucky at this time.
Now that you've been exonerated, what does the rest of your life look like?
I hope that I can give some inspiration to somebody and say, hey, if you're not guilty of something, do not give in. I've been yelling and screaming and exhausting all my finances to prove my innocence. It finally came.
Now, Broadwater says he can finally rest. Isa Gutierrez, NBC News.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today.
Okay, I found it. Finally. I finally found it. It is the Vincent Simmons twins. That's why I kept looking for twins. That's why I couldn't find it. Vincent Simmons twins. And mind you, these are cases that you probably didn't hear about because the last one I didn't even know about. I was looking for the Vincent Simmons twins. And you know what it's almost like? You remember there was a long period in time and the shootings where we didn't know who was who. We were mixing the names up because it was so many that were happening at the time. This is almost equivalent to that, where there's so many cases that you could point to that even AI is like, oh, you're talking about this one. Well, oh, wait, you're not talking about that one? Well, you talk about this one. They have like 5 different cases of the same thing, being Black people being accused of crimes they did not commit from you know who, Karens. But like this one was interesting. Check this out.
Vincent Simmons was released from a Louisiana prison in February after spending 44 years behind bars for a crime he says he did not commit. Our lead national correspondent, David Begnaud, you'll recall this, was by his side when a judge ruled he did not get a fair trial the first time. Simmons was convicted in 1977 of attempted aggravated rape of twin sisters, Sharon and Karen Sanders. He's always maintained his innocence. This case is the focus of this week's 48 Hours season finale, and David spoke with one woman who claims she knows the truth about what happened.
Freedom. When Vincent Simmons walked out of the Louisiana State Penitentiary earlier this year, he felt vindicated. Vincent was found guilty in 1977 in Marksville, Louisiana, of 2 counts of attempted aggravated rape and sentenced to 100 years in prison.
I was shocked, guilty. I ain't did nothing.
A judge vacated his conviction after finding that Vincent did not receive a fair trial, though the judge did not make a finding as to whether or not Vincent is innocent or guilty. But
I remember this. The judge didn't want to make he didn't want to say if he was innocent or guilty, because if he would have said that he was innocent, then they would have had to pay him. And they didn't want to pay him for time served. And I'm like, what a piece of, you know what? Like, come on, man. The dude is wrongfully convicted. And you know it. You know that he was wrongfully convicted. He gave away years of his life that he's never going to get back, right? Around the worst of the worst people that have committed crimes. The murderers, the killers, same thing, but the murderers and the SAs and all that people, right? And you don't want him to get nothing for it? Like, why are you trying to protect? It's not your money. It's not good. It's not like the judge would have to pay him out of his own pocket. It's insane, man. This is insane. The stuff we put up with on the daily. And these, oh my God, these twins are so freaking annoying, especially when you hear the story. So let's get further into it.
identical twins Karen and Sharon Sanders insist that Vincent raped them when they were 14 years old and he was 25.
I know exactly who raped me that night.
The twins say they were with their then 18-year-old cousin Keith Laborde when they encountered Vincent at a gas station, and Keith agreed to give Vincent a ride. They say Vincent directed them to this road, where he forced Keith into the trunk of the car and then raped the two of them.
The limitations it put on our life, like with the anxiety, it's taken a lot from us.
I looked at the discovery, I was like, well, everything they said at trial's a lie. It's all a lie.
Justin Bonus, Vincent Simmons' current attorney, is skeptical. He believes that the twins are lying to protect Keith Laborde.
With me right now.
Keith's cousin, Dana Brouillette, told a private investigator in 2020 and swore in an affidavit that
God.
Keith admitted to her that Vincent Simmons was never with.
This is the kicker, right? This is the kicker right here. When I tell you this case pissed me off for a lot of different reasons, it pissed me off. I think because they're from Mississippi. They from somewhere in the South. I don't know. I can't remember exactly where, but they had some incest stuff going on, and they felt guilty about the incest stuff going on. So they ended up blaming this guy who had nothing to do with anything because he's vulnerable. You know, he could be. There's nobody there to defend him, and that'd be the most frustrating part about all of these stories, all this connection and everything, is that they attack us because they know that we're easy targets. They know that nobody's gonna put on their cape and fight for us, and if they do, they got words for them. They call them derogatory terms like liberals. They don't even realize liberals are Americans. They use it as a derogatory term, really, for a traitor to patriotism, which has become synonymous with white nationalism. You know what I mean? It's really sick. But check this out. Like I said, the rabbit hole gets deep.
Them that night.
He came out and told me there was never a black man.
Instead, in that affidavit, Dana says that Keith told her he had consensual sex with one of the girls and locked the other in the trunk.
And he locked Sharon in the trunk, and he said the sex between.
He had sex with his family member, locked one of them in the trunk. Their story was true, just with different characters, just with a white character. They blamed the black guy. They blamed the black guy for what really did occur with the white guy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It doesn't make any sense.
Dana says that Keith had scratches on his neck. She told the private investigator that she believes Keith and the twins made up the story about a black man to explain away those scratches. Karen and Sharon deny that. But in a stunning admission, Karen does acknowledge having had consensual sex with Keith years before the twins say they were attacked.
But that has nothing to do with what Vincent did. That's two separate.
I did have sex with him, but they just don't have anything to do. It's two separate incidents. Listen, man. Listen. I don't want anybody to take this. I don't want nobody to take this the wrong way, right? Like I said, the best analogy was given by Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali and he grew up during Jim Crow. And they was trying to accuse Muhammad Ali of being racist, which is absolutely insane, right? But the best scenario I could give people is that our analogy is the one Ali gave. Ali said that if it's 1,000 rattlesnakes coming at me at one time and outside my house, am I to leave my door open for the 5 who won't bite me and that ain't poisonous and vicious? And I think that is the analogy. It's like looking at the history books, looking at what, like, historically speaking, has trusting our being in the presence of white women being good for black men. I'm just being honest. I gotta keep it real. Because I had this conversation with my friend all the time, and he talks about how he has these conversations with his white girlfriend. And he talks about how, he tells her these things. I'm like, bro, she never gonna admit to the real, bro. They be knowing. They know, bro. They know the weapon that they have. They know what it means. They know what white tears mean. They know. Like, this woman in this scenario with the perfect neighbor probably definitely had some mental things going on, right? She wasn't fully there, and she still found time to be racist. She still found time to weaponize her whiteness. Those two things. You go look at dementia patients that are white, right? They don't remember where they put their glasses. They don't remember their name, they still remember to be racist. I'm trying to tell you, man, that stuff be so deep rooted. It'd be like ingrained into the DNA. That's crazy. That's crazy work.
Separate incidents.
I called Keith to ask him about all of this. Hello, Keith. This is David Begnaud with CBS News.
Now listen at this dude. Listen at this dude. You remember in the movie Life where he was like, "Did you really commit the crime?" He was like, "What difference do it make if I did? The state of Mississippi got free labor out of it." He pretty much gonna have this type of mentality and attitude towards the situation.
Keith, now 63 years old, denied ever having sex with Karen. He said they just, quote, played around like children.
How ironic her name is Karen, too. But he denied her years later.
Children, end quote. And he also insisted that whatever had happened between the two of them had nothing to do with what Vincent Simmons did that night.
That is guilty. I don't give and yeah, he's a and you can put that on TV. I ain't scared of him.
Wow, David.
Did y'all hear that? Hold on, one more time. I don't want y'all to say the camera was bad, the audio was bad, or whatever the case may be. Not only did he commit the crime, right, that this dude done went to jail for it, but he has no remorse, and he's sitting up there saying he did it. That nigga did it, you know. Crazy work.
Did that night.
That's crazy. Hold on. I'm definitely gonna put this clip out, so give me a sec. That's crazy. I cannot believe when I heard this in real time. I was like, "What?" This is why this case was so shocking to me.
Did that night.
That is guilty. I don't give and yeah, he's a and you can put that on TV. I ain't scared of him.
Wow. David Begnaud joins us now. David, good morning. I want to talk about Vincent first. He's out of prison. What's life been like for him?
Tough. You know, he's trying to get used to just the basic stuff. I mean, he's been.
Yeah, I know. Let me fast forward it because they actually go to Vincent.
Since then, we were there with him in the days after his release, and he was just trying to, you know, flicker around with the remote control and figure out the basic automation that we've lived through, using a cell phone for the first time, all things he's never experienced before. He left prison with next to nothing, just boxes of pictures, letters, legal documents that he had accumulated behind bars. So it's certainly been a big adjustment.
Does Vincent plan to go back to court to seek compensation for wrongful imprisonment?
So it's interesting. His attorney says he does intend to go back to court, but under Louisiana state law, Vincent is only entitled to compensation if he can present clear and convincing evidence of his innocence. And it's important to note that when the judge vacated Vincent's conviction, he did not make a finding as to whether or not Vincent is innocent or guilty. He really only found that Vincent didn't receive a fair trial.
Seems like they would be synonymous, those two things.
You would think, but
he didn't receive a fair trial, but he could be guilty still. He can't make this up. It's crazy.
The legal distinction is clear.
It's so messy and so tawdry, you know, allegations of sleeping with your cousin. I could see why you would not want anybody to ever know that about you. But was there any other evidence other than the words of the words of Karen and Sharon and the cousin? Zero?
None. No physical evidence. It's all based on their word. And Karen told us, she goes, listen, I think I was 9 or 10 years.
Did you hear that? It's all based on their word. All based on their word. 100% was on their word.
Years old when we experimented like kids. But still, I mean, what a stunning revelation.
Why does he did not having sex with her? He said that he experimented what kids do. And she's saying, oh, no, we had consensual sex, but that ain't got nothing to do with right now. What the hell is experimenting with your cousins? Like, was this something new to us? Is that something that's common? Yo, chat, let me know. Y'all was experimenting with y'all cousins? Listen, this is a no free judgment zone. You know what I mean? So put a 1 in the chat. Yo, put a 1 in the chat if you experimented with your cousin. Oh my God. Uncle, if you got an Uncle Daddy, put a 2 in the chat. If this is some weird stuff, go ahead and put a 3. If this is weird and you don't know what they talking about, when you say you know who, I don't know who you talk about. Put a 3 in the chat. Yo, chat, let me know. Let me know. Give me more. Let me know.
Right. Her that is so relevant
course.
To the story.
And the word of the other relative that said Keith told them. Keith told them.
And speaking of relevant, what's law enforcement saying about these allegations?
Exactly.
So look, law enforcement, when we called the district attorney, I actually said to him, I said, sir, Karen admitted that she had had consensual sex with Keith when, Keith was a little bit older than her, but she was around 9 or 10. And Karen told us she thinks that,
9 or 10 is crazy.
They had consensual sex and admitted. And he said, listen, David, that's problematic. But he said, at the end of the day, I still think Vincent's guilty. I don't think Keith did it. And so the district attorney is standing by the women.
Wow. Really admire.
The district attorney said, yeah, that's alarming. Yeah, but I still think he did it. Something about him. I don't know. I can't put my finger on it. Maybe the dark skin. I don't know. But yeah, something about him. He screams guilty.
The attorney, Justin.
You know what's amazing, Gail?
Really admire him.
He and his wife, New York City, watched a documentary about the case. He called Vincent and said, I want to help you. After 20 years of trying, Vincent's like, okay, guy, come on. Yeah. And he did it.
Yeah.
He was the game changer.
Justin Bonus, I think he's one of the heroes, too, in this story.
Yeah.
Don't disagree.
I like how you called him skeptical. He seems more than skeptical.
Yeah.
He's pretty convinced at this point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So let me, hold on. I think this is it right here. Hold on. Okay, this is it. Okay, it happened in Louisiana, Marksville, Louisiana. Okay, now this is what made me mad. Hold on, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. This is what made me mad right here. Okay, here we go. You notice the common thread between this situation that happened, and they were victims then. They carried their victimhood all the way through. And the real victim was the guy that was being convicted of a crime he didn't commit. That's the real victim in the situation. But they swear by, swear to the Lord above, that they're the real victims in the situation, and that, they can't get rid of the trauma. And meanwhile, there's a person that is experiencing real trauma in real life, going to jail for a crime that he didn't commit, and they still won't let it go. They still are harping on it. And it's no different than Susan moving into somebody's neighborhood and swear to God that she's the victim, moved into their environment, their domain, their community, where they are closely knit and know each other, and kids are playing with each other, moved into their place, and she's the victim of them harassing her. You notice the common theme? Rosewood, before it was burned down, a white woman on the elevator with a black man. She gets off the elevator, claims the black man sexually assaulted her. All that black wealth gets burned to the ground. You know what I mean? No, Rosewood was different. See, I'm mixing them up with so many. That was Black Wall Street. Rosewood was where a white woman said she was raped too as well. Common theme between all of them. White women's at the source of it. And here's a little thing I want black women to take with them. And I told Breezy this, and it was true then, it's true now. Me and my wife was talking about this, and we were saying that white women are extremely dangerous and have been throughout history. Women are dangerous in general. The Bible warns you about stuff like this, right? Women are not physically as dominating as males. We know this, right? So God gave them other stuff to an ability to manipulate. They manipulate people through emotions. You know what I mean? They have a higher sense of emotions to manipulate your emotions. All these great tools. You take the battle, the city of Troy, all those men that died because a woman did not want to be with the person who she was sleeping with. Great skills to get somebody else to die for you and for your comfort, right? They have pulled all those things off, right? And I was telling her that white women are dangerous, and she agreed. And she was talking, and she was saying that, somebody was telling her, I think one of her friends was telling her that white women are extremely dangerous because what they'll do is they'll pretend like they like you. They'll befriend you. They'll tell you that they love you. They'll do all these different things, hang out with you, ask about your kids. But then, when you come in late to work, they'll report you to the boss. They do stuff like that. which is dangerous because they're using their brain and they're manipulating you. But yeah, they'll complain on you. They'll complain to the boss, or oh my God, hold on, y'all better not let me find this one. This is perfect. I wish I would have thought about this before the show started. So yeah, we were talking about that. Hold that thought. Let me hold you right. Let me pause you right there. Stop it. Stop. He hit him with the Michael Jackson. No, they're lies. They made it all up. They're lying. They don't want to give me credit for anything.
You've had implants in your cheeks.
Oh, God.
You've had a dimple made in your chin. You've had your lips enlarged. You've had your eyelids reconstructed. Eyelids reconstructed.
Stupid.
None of it's
Come on,
true.
None of it's true. None of it's true. It's BS. They made it up. They lie. They don't want to give me credit for anything.
You've had implants in your cheeks.
Oh, God.
You've had a dimple made in your chin. You've had your lips.
My bad, I had it on loop. But yeah, so yeah, that is that one really upset me, man. It was another one. Oh my God. It's so, like I said, it's so many. It's so many. To anybody that wants to pull up, I posted the link on community tab. One of my homies, I hope he was supposed to pull up today. He had a situation happen. You know what I mean? So hopefully whatever happened ain't that bad, But I pulled up anyway because I promised y'all a show. So let me see if I can find it. Give me a second. Because this was like a full documentary. I think this right here is what pissed me off. Maybe it's this one. Maybe it's this short clip right here. They just double down and they have no remorse. It's really crazy that they want to get rid of the history, but the history is, like I said, ingrained into them. They still see us as 3/5. Check this out.
By the sheriff.
Yes.
You never gave the name Simmons.
No, we did not.
You never described what he looked like.
No, we did not.
You said all
blacks look alike.
And you said all N-words.
That's right. Sure did.
So how are we to square the fact that
How do they always find the right word? That's what I mean. They always find the right situations to put the word nigga in and then act like it's just normal. Yeah, we said all black people look alike. He's like, no, you said all N-words look alike. Yeah, we did say that. We said that.
at night you couldn't explain anything? You didn't have his name, you didn't know what he looked like, but now you're telling me today, and you testified at trial, that his name was Simmons.
That's right.
May I ask you, with all due respect?
Yes.
Why did you make that pact to not say anything? Why
We
wouldn't
were
you
scared.
immediately report it?
Because we were scared. He had told.
Oh my God, that's the same excuse that they used, that the Susan woman used in The Perfect Neighbor. She used the exact same. It's fear. I was so scared. I didn't know what to do. You know, I was just, I don't know. It's fear. So scared. She did that every time the police officers came and she was in the wrong. Like when in the documentary, the woman from the documentary that we're talking about, when she rammed the gate, she just, oh, I don't know what to do. I was just panicked. You know, I was sexually assaulted. She used the same excuse. Literally the same excuse in the documentary. She panicked when the police came. She was gonna comply, but the officer knocking on the door, aggressive, just made her revert back to when she was sexually assaulted. It's just like, oh my God, these people know how to turn on the victim. And when I say people, I mean the Karens. That's why they make that name Karens for those people. And it's befitting too, by the way. They live up to every bit of that name, Karen. You know, they go out there and they put on a performative act, you know. If they do any better, they will probably win an Oscar. But yeah, that's insane.
Us, we were 14 years old. He told us that he had friends and that he would come back to kill us if we told any.
So, black person from the South told you about the power that he would display on you if you were to go and talk to anybody. You can't make this up, man. This is crazy.
This is insane, man. So anyway, yeah, I think that's a good stopping point. I'm gonna go ahead and end it there. So, because we got a fight tomorrow, we got a fight card to call tomorrow, and then after that, I want to do a marriage episode. You know what I mean? And then we got a lot of stuff that's happening that I got the next week lined up with lives that we're gonna get into. So, like I said, this is a good stopping point. Appreciate everybody for pulling up. Appreciate Maria, Angie, Gimme Mo, Kazi, Rob G. Did I miss anybody? Jed, and the Bushes. Shout out to the Bushes. Everybody be in the Bushes. You know what I mean? But yeah, man, this is a good one, man. I'm gonna go ahead and let Ray J talk and serenade y'all's souls, and I'll see y'all on the next one. Hopefully, I catch y'all on the Boxing Live tomorrow. And if not, if you don't want to join the Boxing Live tomorrow, or just stop by to show love, hit double tap the screen or whatever the case may be, I'll catch y'all on the marriage one. I know definitely I want to talk about that one because it's controversial. You know what I mean? It's gender. Everybody like to hear that gender stuff because one thing that's gonna always sell is sex and relationships. You know what I mean? Especially nowadays with red pill and blue pill. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Appreciate everybody for showing up. But anyway, it's the Bucks of Skull. I'm out. Ray J, talk to him. Serenade they soul. Ray J, I want your song, Ray J, to purify these Karen's hearts. You know, because these Karen's hearts are bleeding because they've been the victim of absolutely nothing. You know, and they are. You know what they remind me of? You remember Tinkerbell? Remember how Tinkerbell used to act with Peter Pan, falling all over the place and stuff? That's what a Karen is to me nowadays. You know. And that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a whole bunch of falling out, flopping all over the ground like a fish out of water and all these old crazy things. But so Karens, to all the Karens out there, you know, you're not experiencing racism. You know, real racism is worse than reverse racism. Name calling, give me the name calling over the job applications or to have to cut your hair to be presentable or stuff like that. Give me that 7 days a week and twice on Sunday, you know. And if you think that racism is so unbearable to hear about, you should try living it. That's my saying and my takeaway from the day. But other than that, Ray J, I want you to serenade their souls. I want you to talk to the hearts and minds of these Karens and just change them, Ray J. I want you to change them, brother, because only you got the power to do it through your voice and your vocals. Because their hearts are bleeding, Ray J. They're bleeding, Ray J. They're out there having sex with their cousins, Ray J. Ray J, I just want you to heal them, Ray J. Can you do that for me, Ray J? Because they're out there doing things that kids do with their cousins, Ray J. Like, they made it sound like it was so common. Like, everybody in their region was just, hey, you ever try? Did you do the thing with your cousin? I did mine last week. Like it was just normal. It was the rite of passage or something. It's really disgusting. But anyway, Ray J, serenade their hearts, minds, and souls, Ray J. Until the next time, I'll see you around.
Superstar, wish to have a fancy car, wish to have $1 million bucks. Well, I wish I don't be in love. So tell me, pretty baby, I make one wish and I wish it all on you. Make it love to the break of dawn. Me and you to the baby's born. Till my baby's born.